close to perfect as we can. It worked! It worked! Alright, put some more screws in. And we'll see if Melanie can lift it. Or if I built it too heavy. All right, Melanie's doing the inaugural walk up and down test. Why, Melanie? Well, because when I was a kid, I always made my little brother do all the tests on my harebrained schemes and contraptions. And in my fairness, in my defense here, in all fairness, Melanie weighs a lot less than I do. So, you know, if it holds her up, then I'll try it. But we're going to do a little more reinforcing before I actually do that. We get some brackets we're going to put on the underside to further support things, because this is a totally custom staircase, and this is pretty decent as far as truck camper stairs go, to be honest with you guys. It is not a staircase I would ever build on a house, but it's not a house, and using the dimensions of lumber on a house would be pretty heavy when we're done, and we're trying to make it so it's actually neither one of us has a hernia lifting the thing up and down. I don't want to have to install a crane or hoist up there to raise and lower the deck. And I wanted bigger brackets and heavier brackets than this, but this is what I could find, because I could go smaller and I could go bigger, but the heavier ones were too long because of the angles and everything. So this is better than nothing. It's extra. I just don't want to trust the screws going through from the side. I don't feel like that's going to be strong enough in the long haul. If I did have to rely on that, I'd put structural screws in, but you still only have 1.5 inches of wood. And we were originally going to go with pressure treated, but pressure treated lumber is quite a bit heavier than non-pressure treated, and this is already kind of pushing the envelope for what Melanie wants to be able to pivot and lift. I will do it most of the time, but we want to make sure she can do it if she needs to do it. So we went with this. We're gonna seal it and paint it, and that'll preserve it anyways. But basically, the pressure treated would last longer without being coated and everything, and ultimately would just probably last longer, period. But this will be fine, and it is a weights thing really more than anything for us. And we have a nice wide staircase too. We would have balanced on the weight, we probably would have had to do a narrower staircase, and I feel like this is safer this way. So I think this is going to work, but we're just putting some brackets on here. I wanted bigger and heavier ones. If I can find some at some point that'll work, we can always swap these out, but for now we're working with what we got. And these are deck screws we're putting it in with, and the reason being is that you can't buy decent Phillips head screws anymore, and I don't want them all stripping out on me. So that's leastwise around here, you can't find any decent Phillips screws. These have Torx bits, so they'll work. And I'm well aware if I was building this as a residential, I shouldn't use construction screws, but again, I'm trying not to strip everything out, and that's what I can find, and I can't find structural screws short enough, so we're using what we got, and I think it's going to be just fine in this application. But don't do this on your home and not expect some inspector to complain about it. That's all. We've got stairs. All right, we got stairs. We're pretty impressed with it. We're pretty pleased. Work well. We've also got grab bars on both sides, which give us something to hold on to. In an ideal world, with 4 steps like this, you'd want a safety handrail. You know, the stairs fold up, so that's kind of a problem. If we put one on, we'd have to make it removable. It's not going to be as sturdy as we'd like it anyways then. And you got to store it somewhere when you take it off. So there's these. I would not build these. I said earlier, I would not build these stairs for a house, and I would not. When you're doing RVs and van stuff, you got some different considerations you got to think about. On the one hand, you have to think about shaking and vibrating and motion that you don't, and wind that you don't really have to worry about with a house usually, unless you're, you know, in an earthquake zone or something. On the other hand, you got to think about weight, and so the stairs I would have built for this, I thought, like a 36-inch deck on a house, they would probably weigh twice as much because of the materials I'd use, literally twice as much, maybe more than twice as much. And then we'd have rails too. And this right here is kind of like, it's enough for lifting. I can do it one-handed, but you know, I don't want to make it too crazy heavy. And then we're on hinges, and so you got to think about your hinges. The heavier you make your stairs, the heavier duty your hinges have to be, and you know, they're just not made to take that kind of weight. So these are gate hinges. They'll take the weight of this, no problem at all. I think we're in pretty good shape. Our riser height is like 9 inches, which is a little more than normal on steps in a house. It's fine in this context. It's not bad at all. They're even. That's the important thing. The spacing is even, and it's pretty consistent even from the top step to the deck here, patio, whatever you want to call it, landing. And I like that we have a landing before we get to the stairs. That's actually important. So you have something to step on as you're coming through the doorway. Technically, we should be like 7 or 8 inches for a riser height, but if we do that, we end up with some wacky situations where we don't have the toe room, and we think we played with the positioning, and we think we'd actually be tripping over it. And in order to get that 7 or 8 inch riser height, we'd have to bring the thing out even further, and we've already got like a 4 foot or slightly over 4 foot run here, so it's going to come up, you know, right about the top of this. We don't really want too long either, because then, right, this isn't out too far from the back of the truck, but you know, if you start getting too long, it's like when we put that darn 10-foot ramp on here, right? You need a crazy place to park to have a 25-foot truck plus a 10-foot ramp. So we don't want to be coming out like 6 or 8 feet with the staircase to spread everything out. So we like it. We're comfortable with how it works out. It's solid. It's sturdy. It's consistent step height. And yeah, we're good with it. If we have any problems with it, we built it ourselves, so we know how to fix it. That's the great thing about custom stuff. Sometimes things don't work out the way you want them to, or the way you expect them to, but it's, you know how to fix it because you built it in the first place. And it is something you can fix because you built it in the first place. We're going to get some sealant on this. Not tonight because I'm tired, but tomorrow I think we'll get some sealant on this. And then we're going to probably, I think, paint it black, just like everything else in the back end here. And the idea for that, just like with the black grab bar here, I painted the fuel tank for the diesel heater black. We left a little strip on it so I can see where the fuel level is. But the idea is to kind of make things just sort of blend in. And with it all being flat black, it kind of does. When you see it from any kind of distance, it all just blends in, so it doesn't really stand out that there's, you know, the different parts that are out here. And that was kind of the idea. That was by design. Probably the next thing on the outside here, we gotta, this poor box has had it, but we need to get some boxes that fit under here good, and then we'll strap them in. So we're gonna have several boxes for like outside storage stuff that doesn't matter if it gets wet. They can ride underneath there. This thing, for temporary, let me show you this. In case you're curious. Some of you probably are. So we'll pivot this up. No problem. It sits there. And for now, at least, we got this strap, cam strap, and we can just wrap this around here. Secure it in place. Whoops, if I can get it to thread through there. Okay, there we go. And there's our, whoops, and hold on to the right parts. There we go. All right, so anyway, that holds it in place, we can drive. We could do bungee cords. I don't trust them not to let loose. We don't want to hit the street while we're driving. You know, we'd grind it off. Our staircase, we may do something different on this. We may just still use a strap and put in like some D-hooks to fit better, keep it from, you know, maybe moving around and loosening up or whatever. We may put a bar on, like how you do on landscape trailers. You have a bar that's hinged and swings, and attach it like, you know, with a bolt or a pin onto the side. A little splinter going there. We're not sure, but for right now, for the immediate time, this is fine. This is good enough. That'll work. And then under here, like I say, we'll have some outside storage. And then I got a few other things. I got to do an oil change of this thing. I got to get an HVAC control module in. I got windshield wipers on it, and we need to do a brake check on it because it's got too much pedal travel, I think. So we want to find out what's going on with that. But I want to get it off the gravel, pull it around the outside of the house where my son's got a nice concrete pad, so we can jack it up a little more safely. And I also can borrow his impact driver to zip the lug nuts off, because that's going to be 32 lug nuts that are at 100 plus foot-pound torque. So I'll throw my back out just with the lug nuts before I ever get to muscling off them big dually wheels. So anyway, here's our stairs. We like them. They're sturdy. This is working for us for now. You know, they may get modified or tweaked in the future. Splinter again. Boy, I have to work on that. We've got a handle that Melanie suggested we might want to put on here. She might be right. No more splinters then. That hopefully won't be a problem once it's all sealed up and everything anyway. But they're sturdy. They work. See there? I can walk up them and walk down them. It went better than I thought it was gonna, and I was worried about the angles and all that foolishness and getting the stairs level, and it went better than I thought it would. We didn't film quite as much on this video because, first of all, the wind was blowing pretty good earlier, so it'd be impossible to get audio. And then secondly, I was trying to figure out, I had a picture in my head of what I was trying to do here. And I told Melanie, went to the hardware store, we got some materials, and it's a little bit like when you're a little boy and you're playing with your erector set or your Lincoln Logs or your Legos. You got an idea what you want to build, you got certain materials to work with, and then you got to figure out how to put it all together. So it's a little bit like that. So it was a little bit, I couldn't really explain very well easily what I was doing ahead of time, but here they are. I think they're pretty darn good for RV stairs. They're better than anything we're going to buy, for sure. And I think they're as good as or better than any other DIY RV stairs I've seen out there. We checked out a bunch of videos before we did this project, and I think these are as good or better than what anybody else has done. Yes, you can do them out of metal and stuff. I don't have a metal shop, and I have limited metal working tools, and so therefore it's easier for me to work with wood. That's what I know, and that's what I've got the tools to work with, so that's mostly what I do. But you could definitely do them out of metal, and you might save some weight doing that. That's pretty darn good, honestly. Surprise! I didn't know she had the camera rolling. I should have known better. But seriously, that works pretty good. I'm I'm pleased. And we hit I think we hit a sweet spot between, we didn't want the full length or full angle of the normal stairs just because it was so far, but we also didn't really want a ladder. And sometimes you see RV stairs or truck camper stairs are more like a ladder. They're pretty steep. The ladder angle would be fine coming in, but I didn't want to have to go down backwards going out, and I didn't want to have to worry about my heels slipping off because it's too narrow. So this actually, I think this is pretty good. We'll see. We can modify it if we need to, but I'm pretty happy with that.